And so tonight I wanted to talk about two things. What is God and what is evil? Or where the hell and what the hell, right? Because it's like the main complaint about God has been, where is he, or she or it? It's like, why is the world so messed up, and why doesn't God do something about it? So we're going to explore that, and then we're going to explore the question of evil. Like, why does God let bad things happen? And what are bad things? So we've got a lot to talk about. So why don't I start with I wanted to kind of cover something first. Let's talk about science, okay? Let's talk about what we know about the natural world. And we've our knowledge of the natural world has grown exponentially over the past, several thousand years, because everybody has been trying to figure out how things work. So science actually does go all the way back, because it's a way of knowing, right? It's like in the very earliest dawn of civilization, people would look at the stars and measure time cycles, and so that they would know, different astrological events, and when to plant crops, when to do all of that. So we've been observing the world for a very, very long time, and we've been compiling data. So we have knowledge of the physical world. We know a lot about the moon, for instance, the cycles of the moon. This is part of the very ancient knowledge. And we know about animals. So much we know in our interaction with animals, because we've been hunting them and keeping them and befriending them for thousands of years, thousands. And all of that knowledge gets registered in the collective mind of humanity, what we call race consciousness. And so it enables us to to become not only more knowledgeable, but have deeper insights into the world. And then in the past several hundred years, we've developed things like telescopes and microscopes, where we can look even farther and even deeper into the natural world. And the knowledge just keeps growing almost by the month, or even faster now. So, and I think we can all admit that there's too much for any one person to know, right? If any one of us had to learn everything about everything, that was just, it's ridiculous. So we divide that up, and we're aware that knowledge has layers of complexity. We can know kind of a first year level of geography, for instance, and then we go into second year, and boy, oh boy, isn't there so much more to learn. And then we may go into geology and all of the steps and processes and layers of knowledge there. So it's immense. It's absolutely immense. So how would we characterize that? Not just the knowledge, the built up knowledge that we have, but the combination of the knowledge and the world itself. You see, like we live in this complex system of the world, of nature, and we have this immense body of knowledge about it, and the two are constantly working together. And so together, what do we call that? Does anybody have an idea what we could call it? We really can't call it just science, because science is the study of it. But what's the combination of the world and science? So in other words, the way of knowing and the thing that is known. You see, I'm just not sure what to call that. Maybe the word zeitgeist, but I'm not sure that covers it either. So anybody have any ideas?
Well, Hegel called it the phenomenology of spirit, but that might be a little too much.
The phenomenology of spirit. Well, that's, yeah, I can see where he's going with that. Sure. Yeah. So it's like what is and the spirit of what is, because
Well, it's both what is and what is that transforms both what is and transforms us as we move through history. So there's a dialectical process of history in which spirit or consciousness is moving toward this great goal. And the thing that is known, the world, and our knowing of it is transformed in a dialectical fashion, which is the title of, Hegel's book, The Phenomenology of Spirit.
aha. In mystical literature, there's a saying, the creator creates the creation, and the creation in turn recreates the creator.
Exactly so.
Yeah, yeah. Are you familiar with Dune?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Here's, Leto's last words. Duke Leto is dying, and his last thought that goes through his mind is, the day the flesh shapes, and the flesh the day shapes. So very much a Hegelian idea there, right? That,
Or as the Irish rock group, the Waterboys put it, we're turning flesh and body into soul.
oh yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. So okay, so you see how we're grappling with this, the thing, the way we know the thing and the thing itself and the relationship between the two. That's pretty sophisticated, isn't it? I mean, we could take that forever. We could develop that. We could really go deeply into that. And yet, most people's idea of God is so simplistic compared to that. You see, we have a way of knowing God, and then we have God itself. So, and then there's the interaction between the two, and it encompasses all of what we just talked about, plus the layers of dimensions within that. Because we're in the world, but we don't see the energy, right? We don't see infrared. We don't see the electrical impulses going through the branches of a tree or in our own bodies, or we don't even see the electricity going through the wires in our house. So there's all of that we don't see. Then we don't see all of the cosmic radiation that's bombarding us all the time, nor do we see the magnetic field that protects us from that. But even more, we don't sense the livingness and the presence of living things as much as we notice our own. In other words, you can go for a walk in the forest and you can either really sense the aliveness of the trees and that they have a kind of presence and a kind of intelligence to them. It's not like your intelligence or my intelligence. They're not discussing politics. They're deeply immersed and intensely conscious of their environment, of the soil, of the air, of the sun, and the seasons. All of those things work together, and the tree is so closely unified with those things that you can barely tell the difference. So, but when we walk through the forest, we either are aware of all of that or we're not, right? We may be just thinking how much our feet hurt or how long the sun's going to be up and if we can make it back to camp, right? Those kinds of thoughts. Rarely do we just get so still and tuned into the life energy around us that we really start to be able to communicate with it, right? I don't know if you know that there are such things as nature spirits, these elementals, these beings that have their own particular nature and function within nature. And they're not human, they're elementals, and they have their specific jobs to do. And out in nature, they're all around us, but we don't see them, Nor do we see our protecting angels. we don't see normally those beings that exist above us in vibration. See, the elementals are like below us in vibration. The angels are like above us, but we don't see them. I mean, sometimes we do, but it takes a real conscientious effort to develop those skills. You know, most people don't have that naturally. So all of this, you know, the thing itself, us, the thing itself, and our way of knowing the thing itself, all of that taken together, we very inadequately label God. You see, it's like walking into the Library of Congress and calling it book. You know, where are you going? I'm going to the book. You know, not the library, it's the book. That's the same kind of level of understanding that we're looking at if we call this immensity that we live in God. It's just not a big enough word. In fact, it's so inadequate that I think that some religions even prohibit the mention of the name. They call it something else, like the nameless one. And even as far out as we can envision, and by out I also mean deep, into the understanding of the nature of this thing we live in, there is way more. And we know there's way more. It's not speculation. There's just the amount of this thing that there is, both in space and time and in just sheer beingness, exceeds our ability to comprehend. We just can't think that big. So when we talk about what is God, you know, we need to develop a system, and not a system for God, but a system for our way of understanding God. And the best way, in my opinion, a lot of other people's opinion too, is the solar system model, or the solar model of God, the solar deity. And why? Why would we do that? Because if we look at it realistically, if we were to, in consciousness, back away from our solar system about 3 light years, we'd be able to see it as a body. You know, if we could had that resolution, and if we could sense the depth of field, then we would see this, like this organism occurring there that's surrounded by a vast area of empty space. In other words, it would be like an island, or like if you were out in the Sierra and where you could literally see 100 miles, if there was somebody with a campfire way off in the distance. That's what our solar system would look like if you were way out in space. You'd look over there and you'd see this bright, shiny little jewel, this glowing little ember of light. And then the closer you got to it, the bigger it would get, and bigger it would get. And you begin to make out its structure and its cycles and its energy and all of that. And you would realize that this is like a living cell. This is a living body. And just like any living body, it has a spirit. There is a consciousness isn't even the right word for it, because that kind of consciousness is so huge, it doesn't even serve us to call it that. But we know that it has beingness, it has a nature, it has a spirit, because we do. I mean, if we have the ability to know, and to know the other, and to know self, and to see into these different dimensions of reality, what makes us, why would we have that and nothing else? Why would the whole thing itself not be conscious and alive and have a spirit, and we are just co-spiriting with it? You see, we're just kind of manifestations and inlets and outlets for it. we know that there's an overall intelligence, because when we're born, we seem to get imprinted with something that is accurately and predictably aligned with the positions of the planets. We call it a horoscope. They're amazingly accurate. There's just, the better and closer you look at a horoscope, the more you can really tell about a person in their life. So how would that be? You see, how the hell does that happen? Why would the position of these chunks of rock and gas and ice and all of this stuff around a solar nuclear furnace, why would that have manifestations of personality? So you see, that itself shows us that we live within a being that is also a person, a personality. Because if we look at the 12 aspects of the zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac, they are like the aspects of the personality of this great being that we live within. And as we come into physical manifestation, we're always in manifestation. We're always alive and conscious in a being within this larger being, but we come into manifestation into these physical bodies. And God knows what else, is going on in the solar system. We don't know. We don't know if those places are, we have ideas, but unless you really experience them, you don't, you have to be honest and say it's speculation. But that intelligence, that great being, we are in such a close relationship with it. It's like we are its eyes and ears. We are its agents that have penetrated into this particular layer of consciousness, of vibrational, it's a vibrational field. And it interacts with a similar vibrational field of the whole thing. But there are so many vibrational fields, like each planet has its own vibrational field, so that it has its layer, its range of vibration that does not intersect with ours. So we have we see our own planet, we see all of nature, and we see ourselves. But Venus, or one of our closest neighbors, to us, it looks like a hellish place. I think the surface temperature is something like 800, 900 degrees Fahrenheit. And the atmosphere is like deadly gases like sulfuric acid and that kind of thing. And it's perpetually enshrouded in the clouds of those gases. Not a place you'd like to go, not for any reason, But just imagine if they were living beings like us on Venus, what their place might look like to them. Say they're on a higher level of vibration, and by that I mean the molecules of their vehicle, their body, everything is vibrating that much faster, just like several octaves above ours. To them, that noxious, cloudy atmosphere that they have might look like clear blue sky. To them, the temperature might be perfect. Our equivalent of, tropics in the best season. So you see what I mean? And the only reason I'm bringing this up is that if we can look at the solar system through a non-materialist mindset, and we look at it from a spiritual perspective, the thing is filled with life, absolutely filled with life. So, and that you can discover for yourself, because you can tune into that. You go within and you think about it and you tune into it and you raise your vibration. And then you look and see what you can see. Look at the sun that way sometimes. Sometimes you go out and you see it and try to see the spiritual body of the sun. You see, what's the life energy of the sun? Just like you have a life energy that contains your personality. It contains your vibe, right? It telegraphs your intention. It records your history, and all of these different frequency ranges, all of these different components of you on the energetic level comprise a body of you. We can call it spiritual body, call it soul body. There's like, it's as complicated in its anatomy as our physical bodies are complicated in their anatomy. So it's not something you can just easily say or define, you know, oh, it's that. You see? So as you become more aware of the life in you, and life that is intelligent and responsive and is connected, you see, it's like it has its own network, its own internet, that all of the life energy and all of the frequencies from all the way from mineral to vegetable, animal, man, and above, all of those are connected. They're interconnected. They have a network. And what do networks do? They share information. You see, so we're constantly being informed. It's like if we were computers, we would be connected via the cloud, right? And the cloud would be continually upgrading our operating system. And that operating system you can think of as the soul. It's what runs the body. It's what records all of our the information of our memories. It distills and categorizes and forms character traits. It literally becomes who, you know, it is who we are. And then within that soul, there is an analogous sun, just like at the center of the solar system. At the center of our solar system, we have this solar deity, and that solar deity is us. It was given to us by the great being. And when you hear people talking about individuality, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that gift from the great being that gave us our own system. We are like a microcosm of the macrocosm. We are a reflection of God. We are like a fractal piece of God. And that means that everything that's in the great being is also in us. You see? So this is why the Oracle at Delphi said, know yourself. Know yourself. You see, know the spiritual nature of your own being. So I hope this gives you a sense of what we're talking about when we talk about God. God is not a thing. God is everything. But God is more than just the you know, God is more than the sum of its parts, right? The way they say that. We are in God. God is not distant from us. We're not, it's impossible for us to be separated from God. Because there's nothing else but God. That's it. So this leads us to the question of evil. If everything is God, why is everything so damn hard? And why is there pain and suffering? Why do bad things happen to good people? All of those questions. You know, the child that gets killed, the busload of nuns goes off the cliff. You know, wars, genocides, all the terrible things that seem to blare at us from history and the present day. So here's a way to think about it. I want you to think about, try to imagine the most expensive, most intricate, and the most fragile scientific instrument you can conjure up. What's the most intricate piece of instrument like you've ever seen? Piece of machinery or optical or electronic instrumentation. Anybody have examples they want to share? Well, I'll share one. I was in Silicon Valley, lived in Silicon Valley for a number of years, and I was in a building that had this room that was filled with this cubicle shaped object that was about 8 feet by 8 feet, maybe 10 feet tall. And it was the camera that takes the picture of the diagrams for computer chips and shrinks it down and imprints it into a microscopic piece. One of the most sophisticated pieces of equipment on the earth. Absolutely extraordinary. So as you can imagine, this machine has a million parts at least, is enclosed in this protective environmentally controlled atmosphere with strict restrictions on who can access it, around the clock surveillance and around the clock security. I mean, this thing is so intricate and expensive and fragile that everything is built to protect it, right? And why? Because it has the ability to deal with matter at such a fine resolution. You see, it can see things that no other machine can. That's what we are. We are this delicate, extremely complex system, this machine. I hate that word for us because we're not a machine. But the body, in a sense, is a machine. We have such perceptual abilities and dexterity and ways to relate to the earth plane that if we were a scientific instrument, we'd be, we'd cost $1 billion and be extraordinarily fragile. What's the only way to protect an instrument like that? Is to give it very finely attuned sensors that pick up any form of danger and damage to itself. We call that pain. You see, if we didn't have pain, we'd be dead within a week of being born because we would just destroy ourselves. You see, we need pain. We need pain just on so many different levels. But the example I like to give is the rose. I mean, just think of a beautiful red rose. You can feel the texture of the petals, that very soft, velvety texture. And the smell of the rose is just extraordinary. There's no other smell on earth like it. But if you're going to pick that rose, you're going to have to brave the thorns. If you're going to come into the earth with all of its extraordinary beauty, there are trade-offs. If you want to enjoy the sunsets, enjoy the presence of a lover in your life, if you want the beauty of music or the laughter of a child or the beauty of a running horse and the satisfaction of growing flowers and crops and plants and the satisfaction of building a house, of building a school, of creating works of art. All of these things that are like jewels in the crown of humanity. Those are the driving factor. Those are the things that make us risk catastrophe. You see, it's like we come here for the specific reason, and that the earth is incredibly beautiful. It's just sharp around the edges. You're gonna have to, tiptoe through those tulips. You know, it comes with risk, but we are willing to take those risks for the benefits that we find here. I mean, everybody knows what it's like to be bored, right? You get stuck at home, rainy day, nothing to do. You can get bored really fast. Well, just imagine if you were stuck out in the void. You're aware, you're conscious. You can't even sense your own being because it's so subtle, but you're out there in the middle of nowhere with nobody, just you. That could be a form of hell. The loneliness of that could be crushing. So then you see this beautiful garden of a planet that's blue and the white clouds and the green of the earth and the gold colors, all of the beauty there. I mean, just even on the physical plane, the planet is gorgeous. Just imagine what it looks like on this with spiritual sight. You know, the life of the biosphere, all of the pulsations and the radiations and the intelligence and the information being shared, you know, between all the systems and all the species, and on all levels, you know, like the communication that transpires between those who are in the body and those who are out of the body, you know, and that layer of vibrational layer around the earth that's kind of like it's a hangout zone, right? People get caught in there sometimes. So there's so much going on there, you see. And when a spirit sees that and say, I want to go there. So we go there, but we learn that it comes with a price. And we say, I'll pay it, whatever it is, I'll pay it. And some of the lifetimes we have are going to be, you know, pretty good. Some of the lifetimes can be so-so, and other lifetimes could be absolutely torturous. But taken all together, from our soul's perspectives, we don't really care that much. You know, we don't really care about suffering the way we do when we're in the body that's suffering. And every account that I've heard of people having, you know, near-death experiences, they go out of their badly injured body and they experience this release and the freedom from the physical body, and it's a freedom that is indescribable. And then when they have to come back in, they have to squeeze back into it, and it's very, very crushing, very painful, very restricting. But there's something that is so important in this life experience, that it makes us push through the pain. You see? But you have to have eyes for it. You have to be able to hear it. You know, you have to be able to hear music to appreciate it. You have to be able to see beauty to appreciate it. Otherwise, it's just data. So it's not unreasonable to think that things like beauty are somehow fundamental to reality. And you can say that, well, you need to be, you know, a lot of people will say, well, beauty is just in our mind, you know, and they say our mind is just in our brain, which there's absolutely no evidence for that. And as mystics, we know that that's not true, because being mystics, we're able to put our consciousness in places outside of our body. And with practice, with training and practice, you can do that to some pretty amazing degrees. So we know we're not our body. We know our mind is not in our head. So we've come here, and we've come here for a reason. And one of the biggest reasons is beauty. You know, it's like in the creation story, it said God created the earth and he saw it was good. You know, we come here and we think this is good. This is really good. So if you can if you can try to conceive of a real system, you know, and by that I mean like reality, a system that exists in reality and it composes reality, that system has as one of its major pillars of existence something like beauty. It's not just in our head. Beauty is something that exists throughout the whole thing. Now, I hope this is stretching your mind, because we don't normally think of it in this way. And I'm just asking you to consider that might be so. That instead of wondering whether God is a person, we should be wondering, is there anything but a person? That's the more reasonable question. But as long as we think of the world as a conglomeration of things, we cannot see it that way. So the thing that gets us through life, one of the things that gets us through life is beauty. It's our appreciation. Another, because from that is derived gratitude. Another thing that gets us through life is meaning. You know, to have a purpose, to have a desire to do something, to move through this milieu of possibility, and out of it create something. That's the creative spirit in us. And we're willing to pay the price for our sensitivity. We're willing to pay the price of pain for the benefit of being able to touch something beautiful, to create something beautiful. Now, I think that this is as much a definition of the Holy Spirit as you could get, because it's the spirit of this loving desire, this desire to come in and merge with and come into oneness with something that is so endearing and incredibly beautiful that you would sacrifice anything, even your life, to do that. That's the love of God. That's the environment that we live in. We live in the love of God, because that spirit of love, that spirit, that longing, that desire is so powerful. It runs the whole show. The only way we can make a problem of it is by thinking that we're separated from that. You know, that we can lose love, or that we can, you know, have to look at ugliness. None of that is true. Nobody can control the way you see the world. No one can control the way you feel about the world, the way you feel about somebody else, the way you feel about yourself. That's all 100% in our control. All right, so I'll open it up to questions, comments. We're looking at trying to define God in a way that makes sense, and in a way that works for us. And we're trying to understand pain in a way that makes it bearable.
That was beautifully put, Michael.
Oh, thank you.
You're such a magician with words. You paint such clear pictures. I'm sure everyone feels that. Just what a gift.
Well, thank you.
What came to mind was a famous quote by Khalil Gibran, the prophet, where he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." And that came to mind when you were speaking. But as far as a definition of evil, what would you say evil is? What blocks the process? Disharmony? What attacks beauty?
Well, I was just visiting a friend in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and he's a glass blower, and he has this little booth set up, a big booth in the middle of a shopping mall, works there every day. And so he has this little torch that that is and he has an oxygen generator machine right next to it. So it shoots a little flame out about 2 inches long, very tightly focused. Thing reaches 3,000 degrees. It's a 3,000 degree flame. Evil is putting your finger in that. But why would you? Why on earth would you do that? Right? All right, so here's another example. You've got, we know that our thoughts affect our bodies. That if we smile, it releases certain hormones. And if we frown, it suppresses that. So if we smile, we actually make ourselves feel better, even if we force the smile. When we move our muscles, we feel better because they're secreting different hormones into our bodies. If we think that we are weak, it actually lowers our strength, makes us weaker. If we think we're strong, we can actually do more. Weightlifters psych themselves up all the time. They get into their belief system that's, I can do this. I know I can do this. And bam, they do it, right? Our thoughts also affect our cells. So that if we are depressed, if we are anxious about life, we're sending the message, a message to our cells that says, we don't want to live anymore. If we're depressed, we want it to end. If we're suffering, we want the suffering to end. So the cells pick up that signal, and they don't have a will of their own. They just comply. They get the message, oh, okay, it's time for all of us to shut down. And they start doing that. And then the next day you feel better, and you think, wow, I'm so glad that's passed. Now I want to live. And the cells go, wait a minute, yesterday, now today, and they start to get confused. So you get these patterns of confusion, and some parts of the body get the message before other parts of the body. And so they're working against each other at cross purposes. And pretty soon you've got this confused mess of this energetic structure in the body. No wonder we contract diseases. Because all of the physical part of the body is held together by that information, by that intelligence, by that subtle level of life energy. So if we mismanage that life energy, it can create conflicts and dissonance within, the symphony that our bodies are. And we get ill, and if we get sick enough, we die. And then we say, oh, that's evil. Cancer is evil. Cancer might just be the response of the body saying, oh, you don't want to live anymore? We're on it. Don't worry. We'll take care of it. Could be an entirely positive thing. So you want to die? Okay, we're going to make that happen right now. You see, because they don't know. The cells don't know. They don't have a 5-year plan. They're not trying to put their kids through college, any of that stuff. They're just busy being cells. And they're busy taking information. And one of the places they take information from is from our thinking, and not just our thoughts, although our thoughts are real things and they have symbolic content that the cells can read. But the energy of our thought, the intention of our thought, the feeling of our thought. If our thoughts are depressed, thoughts of depression, of pain, of sorrow, all of that, those are negative inputs into the body, into the cells, and they will comply by pulling the plug, you see, and then everything starts breaking down. Evil in the world, in the social sphere, is pretty much the same thing. It's a lack of cohesion. It's a lack of a common goal, you might say. Because everybody wants something meaningful to do in their lives, and if they don't have that, they're going to go crazy. Yeah. Everyone wants somebody to love in their life, and if they don't have that, they're going to go crazy. And crazy people do crazy things, and we call that evil. You see, it's not, it's really quite, everything works. The definition, the way we define it in the Holy Order of Mans is evil is that which does not appear to be constructive. You see, I think it's a pretty good definition. It's got all the important elements in it. You know, appearance.
What I'm getting is it's whatever works toward lack of harmony or something that breaks harmony.
Yeah, yeah, and we can see now, like with the cells receiving the intention to shut down, they're going to destroy their own harmony, right? They have to in order to fulfill that command.
Yes.
Right. So then we think, well, are the cells evil? No.
No.
You know, are the cancer cells evil? No, they're doing exactly what we told them to do. You see, now, and you know, people will rebel against that. It's like, you know, blaming the victim and all that stuff. But really, you know, if our thoughts have an influence on the cells of our bodies, then yeah, we determine in subtle ways how those cells are going to flourish or not. And then, of course, there's the fact that our bodies have a life cycle. You know, supposedly that life cycle is either 120 or 144 years old, years of lifespan. But, you know, because of all these problems, it's that long just so that we can live this long, right? Because if it was only 100 years, maybe we'd only live to 50. But since it's 144, then we can live to 70, 80, or 90 years, and sometimes longer. You know,
Yes.
if you want to hit the moon, aim for the stars. That kind of.
Yes. Yes. Understood.
So all of these things, they look evil to us. I mean, have you ever redone the kitchen in your house or a bathroom?
Yes.
That's hell.
Yes, it was.
That's painful. It's total destruction.
Yes.
Until it starts coming back together, right? But before you can build anything new, you got to tear out the old.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's evil. It's really evil. Now, I know I don't want to dismiss the severity of this because, you know, there's nothing like nothing quite as horrifying as encountering somebody who has a malicious intent all the way down to their core.
Malicious intent, sociopaths. Yes.
Yeah, that's a no joke kind of thing.
Yes.
And so, but it's easy to think, well, you know, that's evil. But is it evil or is it fulfilling some function? Right? Does it have a place within the overall constructive direction of the universe? And really, we all have to admit that, okay, you've heard all the stories, people near death experiences, and they come back and they say they felt so relieved and so free and so joyous, and they were with people that they loved and everything was so beautiful, and then they had to come back, you know. But if we were all conscious of that all the time, why would we fear death? You see, we might still fear pain. We don't want to suffer unnecessarily, but why on earth would we fear death when it's such a relief? You see, so if we had that level of consciousness, then our concepts of evil would be radically different. You know, people getting killed would not be that big a deal because of everything I just said. But somehow it is of inestimable importance that we not kill. There is something about the nature and the incredible power of being in this form, in this planet, in this range of vibration, that is so deeply meaningful in itself that to kill someone is a monumental action. It has reverberations that fill the whole system, that the whole system can feel. So this is not in any way a, say, oh, don't worry about murder, don't worry about sickness, and it's all meaning, or it's all, an illusion, that kind of, no, it's really quite real.
Yes.
And if you've ever experienced any amount of pain, that you can't reason your way out of that. You can't
No.
fantasize your way out of that.
No.
So to dismiss it lightly is foolish.
Yes.
So, there are things, there's statements in the Bible, things like fear God. Well, hell yes,
For starters.
Yeah, I'm a big guy, when I walk through an antique store and there are all these fragile figurines on shelves and stuff, I fear the store. I don't want to move too quickly in any one direction.
That would
I'm
be a bull in
afraid.
his house.
Well, God is kind of the same thing, this big being that we live in is a very intricate system of interaction and inner workings that, and if you get out of phase with it, you're going to start getting shredded.
What's that saying? One of my favorite quotes: "You're not punished for your sins; you're punished by your sins."
Yes, exactly.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so anybody else? What time is it? Yeah, we're about at the end. Renee, you usually have something.
I have a question.
I
I have
see.
a
I
question.
knew it.
Well, I've been debating whether it applies, but and this is something that happened yesterday. So it's a real thing that happened in a town in Nebraska. And a lady got kicked out of her apartment house, big apartment, like the big apartments. And she got kicked out for whatever reason. And so she got in her car and she ran over two of the men that were working in the yard. Just ran them over, killed them.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a big deal because this was Lincoln, Nebraska, and stuff like this doesn't happen, And
Right.
so people are really struggling with why, and my daughter lives there. So she was telling me this and she said, why would somebody do this? And these people were married and they have families and they have 4 little kids, and she was giving me all these details and stuff.
Right.
And I told her, I says, well, and I didn't get all, I had to just tell her what I knew or what I felt is obviously, that's not normal behavior. And something wasn't right in this particular woman for whatever reason. It wasn't just the fact that she got kicked out of the apartment. There was more to that. And I said, yes, it is. What she did was evil. I said that no, that doesn't make her evil. I said, so you have to. And she kept bringing up how painful it was, and I said, well, first of all, you personally, you have to forgive her so that you can move on and be of help to anyone that you need to. You have to find a place in your heart to find forgiveness. And I didn't know how else to deal with it. I just kind of talked about the simple things like, and we've talked about these things before that, we're all children of God. And, some of us are working really hard at that and others aren't. Some aren't even aware that they are a child of God, right?
Yeah.
I said, but you can't judge. And I says, I know it's hard not to, and you're going to hear a lot of feedback, but I said, that's where you need to start with the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And also, I think that's the best thing for the woman involved because it's just so crazy and insane, and it is hard to understand.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh.
all I can give her. But when you're talking about this, about pain and this woman obviously was in pain, some kind of pain, some type of pain was driving this.
Yeah.
And of course, she accepted the emotions that she was feeling and just put them to action, put everything into action, her thoughts and her, just
Right.
what she was feeling.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you think? Give me your take on this. 'Cause
Yeah, well, first of all, there's nothing more egregiously obnoxious as a new age type saying, well, there's no such thing as death, and that these people are in heaven now, and they're going to be, they're okay and they're happy and all, no,
Mhm.
that's
No,
just
I
that
get
is
it.
really the wrong thing to say, because the people who are affected, the families of these two men and the men themselves, there's nothing, it's nothing less than a tragedy. It is truly horrific and tragic. There's just no getting around that.
Mhm.
But to call it evil is to exteriorize it in a way that doesn't really work well for the longevity of our sanity. Because then it makes it something else, and it oversimplifies it. When we realize now that I think 50% of adults live alone, some horrendous percentage of people live alone, and
Mhm.
not just live alone. In a very large component of them, or number of them, cohort, are unhappy living alone. They live alone. They don't. I wish I was better with statistics, as good with statistics as I am with quotes. I think I'd
Mhm.
rather have the quotes than the statistics. The people who can't even get in a relationship. People who really want, both men and women who want to be in a relationship, but simply can't for some reason. Either they're not doing something right, or just the opportunity isn't there.
Mhm.
It's a horrible way to live. And if then and it will make you crazy. And by crazy, I mean, it'll make you look out at the world thinking that it's doing it to you, when
Right.
really you have the ability to create love in your life if that's what you want, but you have to do it. But if it's a feedback loop, and it's a vicious circle where the more you think the world is doing it to you, the angrier, the more frustrated and anxious and angry you get, until
Mhm.
you reach a breaking point, and then you're going to strike out at any available target.
Mhm.
You see, and then you have all of these, this copycat mentality where you have, okay, what your anger is going to express in ways that have been done by other people and broadly made known. So it's
Mhm.
all laid out for you. If you have a gun, you use your gun. If you have a car, you use your car. You get a knife, you get the picture.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but it's really a mistake to label all of it's a mistake to label insanity as evil. Insanity is just a breakdown in the system of a person in their life.
Mhm.
So, and when that happens, then you can expect some pretty crazy things to happen. So
Mhm.
so the intelligent thing, right, would be to head these kinds of things off before they get into full career.
Mhm.
But for that you need community, for that you need connection, for that you need a set of values that doesn't demonize people who are different from you. All of those
Mhm.
things should be criminal, right?
Mhm.
They should be criminal, or is just as socially unacceptable as smoking in an elevator.
Mhm.
But they're not. We haven't gotten there yet. We've gotten to not smoking in an elevator. That's pretty good,
Mhm.
right? Not smoking on an airplane. That's progress, right?
Mhm.
But but keeping a cohesion in a neighborhood, you know, communication with community members and all of those people valuing their community, which means their connection with each other. No, we haven't gotten there yet. Some societies have, and you know, more the more rural societies are usually better at that, but because they have to be, you know. So it's just not productive to call it evil, because then you start looking for perpetrators. And the perpetrator too often looks just like you, only you don't realize it,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
The best way to understand evil is to find it within yourself. Because it's there, you got it.
Mhm.
Everybody has it. We all have our, you know, our fantasy rampages, road rage, anger at our children, stuff like that, or at our spouse. So the more you know about that, and the more you accept that as part of you, then the more you can see it in other people and have compassion for them,
Mhm.
because you're in no position to judge them. You're just not. And it's real dangerous when you do, because whatever, how the way you judge other people, you're going to have to do the thing that you hate. I don't know exactly how it works, but it sets up some kind of a polarity where if you because you know, if you see somebody like littering, for instance, and it really pushes your buttons, so, and you just intensely hate and judge that person and all of that, it might be an hour or two later and you inadvertently litter in some way. It's almost, it's like a law of nature. The way you judge somebody else, you will have to do that same thing, just to balance out some kind of energetic scales. So if you recognize that in yourself ahead of time, and you know, really learn from your own outbursts and your own pain, going into your own pain, then you can recognize pain in other people. And there's no greater boost to your compassion than that. Are we done?
Yes.
That was wonderful, Michael. Thank you very much.
You bet. It's my
It was
pleasure.
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
I see pictures when you speak, Michael. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well,
Yes.
spread the word, you guys. If you're on Facebook, you know, talk about the class and invite your friends. You know, this could be 3 times as big. We've got a lot of space on this channel.
Okay, good.
All right.
I'll spread the word. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Have a
Thank you,
wonderful evening.
Michael.
Good night, everyone.
Michael,
Good night.
everyone,
Much harmony to you. Good night. Thank you.
love
Night.
you.
Bye-bye. Good night.